What's going on, podcast listeners? My name is Michael Chernow. I am a restaurateur and lifestyle entrepreneur, and I am truly obsessed with living a life better than yesterday through wellness, fitness, and good vibes. I've always wondered if the drive to succeed is something we are born with, or if it's something that is made over time through grit, drive, and perseverance. I get to answer that question exactly, and the goal of this podcast is to talk with people that have absolutely crushed it in life and have inspired me to do the same. This is Born or Made. Ladies and gents, welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. Today, I have a super exciting guest. His name is Jordan Syatt. He is a 5-time world record holder in powerlifting. The dude is, how tall are you, Jordan?
5'4", so super imposing.
5'4", 100 and how many pounds?
Right now I weigh 150, but I deadlifted my record at 132 pounds when I weighed 132.
So he is about the same size as me. We're both on the larger side of human beings. He is a world record holder, which is incredible, 5 times. He is one of the most well-respected online nutritional and fitness coaches. He is an animal. He also did a 30-day Big Mac challenge where he ate a Big Mac every day for 30 days straight and lost how many pounds?
7 pounds.
So defying gravity is essentially what Jordan did. I'm super excited to have you on. I follow a lot of people in your industry because I'm so passionate about nutrition and wellness. And I gotta say, man, the content that you put out is incredibly consistent. It's fun. It's not like just reading a bunch of scientific studies and research. It's really about having a good time, trying to get to people's heart and soul, knowing that really changing your life for the better through fitness and nutrition is a challenge. So I just think that you're an awesome dude. From what I know, and I can't wait to get to learn more about you.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited. So why don't you take a second to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So strength coach, nutrition coach. I got into fitness because of wrestling. So I started wrestling when I was 8 years old. My mom suggested that my brother and I wrestle. My brother, he's an older brother. He was getting picked on, and my mom was like, all right, I want you guys to wrestle. And when I was 8, the only wrestling that I knew of was WWE style wrestling. and I remember in my living room, she was like, hey, you guys are going to wrestle. And I was like, you want me to hit someone with a chair? And she was like, no, you idiot, like Olympic style wrestling. And I was obsessed with it. Like once I started, it's all I thought about. It's all I did. And I made varsity as a freshman in high school. I beat a junior out for the varsity spot, but I had to cut from 112 pounds to 103 pounds every week, sometimes multiple times a week in order to make weight for competition. And as a freshman on varsity, I was mainly going up against juniors and seniors. So I was 14 years old going up against 17, 18-year-old kids. So because I'd already been wrestling for so long, my technique was pretty good. My endurance was good, but my strength was nowhere near where it needed to be for a varsity wrestler. So I started looking for internships at gyms near me. I was like, I just want to learn how to get stronger and lose weight. So I applied to a gym near me, and I was like, hey, can I just let me take your trash out, clean the floors. I'll do anything. I just want to learn from you. And the first gym said, no, we don't want a high school kid walking around our gym. So I applied to another gym, and it was a blessing because they took me under their wing, and they were very science-based strength and conditioning, very science-based nutrition. And I worked there all through high school, 14 years old, all the way through the end of high school. And that's how I really got in the fitness industry, is just with under the wing of 2 incredible coaches, Stacy Shadler and Kevin McCarthy. And that's really where I got my passion for coaching and learning the science behind all of this.
I think it's so interesting because people that have, or in my experience, in my interactions with people that have really excelled in an industry, tend to start out somehow, some way in their early teens, like almost professionally, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, it was very similar. I got my first job in a restaurant when I was 13 years old. And I had no idea what I was really getting into. I just knew that I wanted to be around people. And so, you know, when it comes to online coaching, which is obviously in our current state, something that people are really looking at, right? Like, I mean, a lot more people are staying home, or most people are staying home. Really hard to get to a gym, if you can get to a gym at all. You know, for building an online presence, which you have done such a phenomenal job at. I mean, if you go to Jordan's website and check out his website, it's awesome. Like, just everything about the site. It's quick, it's easy, it's fun. And what kind of advice can you give to someone who's out there trying to develop an online presence?
You know, there's a lot of stuff that I would say. And usually what I'm about to say are things that I've learned because of the mistakes that I've made. One of the things you said was that if you look at my content, it's not like reading studies. It's fun, trying to get to people's like emotional side, their heart and soul, just trying to be honest. If you look at my content I started making content in July of 2011. So like 9 years ago now. If you look at my content from 2011 to 2015, you will see a very different style of content. You'll see much more big sciencey words. You'll see a much more quote unquote professional person. And that was because that's what I thought I had to do in order to succeed. And I was writing in a way that I didn't realize at the time, but looking back, I was writing in a way that was based out of insecurity. And I was writing in a way that I was trying to impress other coaches. So what a lot of people don't realize about fitness coaches trying to make a presence online, and I'm sure this is across all industries, we're generally concerned about what other coaches think of us. Like, do they think we're smart? Do they think we're stupid? Do they think that we know what we're talking about? So I would write articles and make videos using verbiage and terminology that everyday people wouldn't understand, because I was trying to impress the coaches rather than trying to help the people who needed it. And things really started to take off for me once I stopped trying to impress coaches and started trying to help the people who really needed it. And what that included was writing things in a way that were fun and that were me, using characters and putting on wigs and talking in different voices and speaking in a way that makes things very simple and easy to understand, rather than trying to use big words in a way to impress other people. So I think, you know, the general advice would be yourself, but it's pretty hard. And that advice doesn't really help anyone. It's like, well, be yourself. It's like, okay, well, myself right now is very nervous and insecure. Okay. So who are you trying to help? And you have to be yourself to the people you are trying to help. Don't worry about what other coaches or other people in your field think of you, because they're not going to be your customer anyway. It's like, focus on the people who need your help and be yourself to them.
I think that is such an incredible piece of advice, not only for building an online presence, but in general, because I similarly had a situation when I first launched my first business where I know I'm really good at connecting to other human beings. I know that I have a presence. My skill set is it really resides in emotional intelligence, being able to engage with humans. That is like what I do well. But when I started a business, I didn't know shit from Sherlock when it came to a P&L. I went to school, I got a degree in restaurant management, but really when it came down to it, like, I didn't know how to fucking manage a P&L or a balance sheet or any of those things.
Dude,
And
I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know what a P&L is.
You know, well, profit and loss statement, but at the end of the day, like I you know, it's so challenging to be able to have the confidence in putting your energy and your power into the shit that you're good at, as opposed to wasting the time on the things that you're not good at. Yep. Or trying to impress other people, maybe a business partner, maybe other people on your team, with this idea that you're great at everything and you know everything. And I had to learn the hard way. I beat myself up so bad because I wasn't good at these things. I wasn't good at logistics and operations necessarily. But I knew how to build a brand. I knew how to lead a team of people and get people fired up to do things. But I ended up spending more time in the beginning on the shit that I sucked at because I sucked at it. You know what I mean? And I felt like I needed to do it.
It's so funny. When you let your insecurities dictate your actions, you're going to end up wasting a lot of time because I was in special education growing up, and I was always worried about what people thought of me and my intelligence. So it makes sense to look at my behavior in 2011 as trying to show people, oh, I'm smart. I'm smart. That was my actions. That's how I made content, to show people that I knew what I was talking about. And that was my biggest insecurity, was I don't think people think I'm smart. So to show people that I'm smart, I'm going to speak in a way that makes you think I'm smart. So if I just focus on what I was good at, which is being funny and goofy and getting information across in an easy to understand way, I actually would have helped more people. But because that wasn't my insecurity, I ended up focusing on the wrong stuff. And the more you focus on and you try and prove, like, when you allow your insecurities to dictate your actions, you end up doing a lot of stupid stuff.
You know, we have a friend in common, and one of your clients, Gary Vaynerchuk. And I think this is one of the messages that he really puts a highlighter on, which is like, don't try to be everything. Be your fucking self. Be shameless about it. Triple, quadruple down on it. And if anybody gives you shit about not being good at other things, you don't really want them in your circle anyway. Right. And I love that about him. I love that about his mentality, where, you know, he really has I mean, look, I'm sure we all walk around with underlying insecurities, right? But when you speak to Gary in person, he's real about it. He doesn't actually care that like when I talk about a P&L, when I first went on his podcast, we talked about like P&L, and he was like, I have no fucking idea what my P&L looks like. He's like, I just don't. And I felt like, even then, you know, like 11 years into business for me, I felt so good when he said that, because I was like, Jesus, you know, I still walk around with a little bit of that stuff. The idea of this podcast is, I get people like you on here, and we try to talk about, or try to figure out the nature-nurture question. Whether you believe you were born with an innate ability to get to where you're at today, or if you were made over time through grind, grit, and perseverance. The way I like to get there is by getting your story from as early back as you can remember, and then potentially extrapolating a few things to help us come to this answer. Though I don't believe there's a right answer here. I think the topic is really interesting.
I was always very blessed with athletic ability, which is very weird for my family. My family is like, we're a Jewish family, not really many athletes in there at all. Most of the people are significantly overweight, a lot of health issues, a lot of professors, lawyers, doctors. When I said I wanted to be a personal trainer, they were like, what the fuck? my mom still to this day says, you know, it's not too late to go back to school, to this day. So I was really blessed from a very early age with athleticism, and also with enjoying healthy food like fruits and vegetables. My mom, I'll never forget this. When I was a kid and I'd be at birthday parties. I remember at Acton Bolodrome in Boston, Massachusetts, we would have birthday parties. That's where all the kids had their birthday parties. And at the birthday party, they'd have cake and they'd have Cheetos and whatever. And I remember being really young, 4, 5, 6 years old, and they'd be walking around with plates of cake for all the kids. And for every time they would give me, I'd be like, is that cake? I don't want that. And my mom every time would be like, you're the only kid I know who would say no to cake. And I would prefer to have watermelon. Like, I just liked watermelon better than cake. And my whole family thought it was odd because they weren't health conscious. They didn't focus on exercise or athletics or anything. And so yeah, I was very lucky on that front. I'm starting like having a lot of athleticism and focus on healthy foods.
And so, but just quickly, so like that athleticism, was it something that you actively pursued because you wanted to be a great athlete, or was it just like you picked up the ball and you knew how to throw it?
I think I did it because I was good at it, right? So generally speaking, we like the things we're good at and we hate the things we don't. My brother, not athletic at all, very smart, very good in school. And, when you're siblings, like you try and, when you're brothers, especially, like you'll fight, you'll try and say things to hurt each other's feelings, whatever it is. My brother knew that my soft spot was that I didn't think I was smart. So he would always like, you're a sped, and all this. And then I would go back at him with like, yeah, like you're fat, Like that was like how we fought as kids growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I had tutors growing up and I was in special education and blah, blah, blah. And like, for me, I was like, you know what? I was just told that I wasn't smart. I didn't fit into the mold of standard school. So I was like, I'm just going to do sports. I'm athletics. I'm like, this is what I'm good at, right? It's just like, there's a genetic component to literally everything we do, which is why it's very odd for me and my family, because nobody in my entire family that I know of is living or has been living in my entire life was genetically blessed for athletics. They were all students, like studious, intelligent, book smart. None of them were athletic. We see this in everything. We could use this within fitness, right? Generally speaking, who is more likely to do yoga, men or women?
Women.
Generally speaking, who is more likely to go into the weight room and lift heavier weights, men or women?
Men.
Genetically, generally speaking, women are more congenitally lax. They're more flexible. They're more mobile than men are. Generally speaking, men are more strong. They have more testosterone, they have more muscle mass, so they're generally stronger. We do go to the things that we like. You watch a man, generally speaking, go into a yoga class, they are stiff. Not all of them, but they have a lot of trouble with mobility, a lot of trouble with flexibility. They're in this class in which they suck at what they're trying to do and they don't like it. So why not go to the weight room and lift 2-3 times as much weight as the other people in that yoga class? Same thing with women when they go in the weight room. There's a lot of societal factors and other things at play here, but generally speaking, they go in, they're lifting not nearly as much as a lot of the big meatheads in the gym. So they feel insecure, they feel bad about it. So, all right, I'm gonna go back to where I feel comfortable in the yoga room where I'm really good and I can excel. So what you're born with definitely plays a huge impact in regards to what you pursue. How far you pursue it, that changes based on who you are and I think how you're brought up and your mentality. But what you pursue, I think, is often based in how good are you at it from the beginning. And I think it takes a special individual to say, if you suck at something from the beginning, to keep trying it, even if you suck, and especially if you suck, because you might know like, hey, I suck at it now, but I'm going to put in 2, 3, 4, 5 years of work and I could be good on the other end. But that's very few people.
Yeah. I mean, when I first started doing this podcast, my perspective has changed a bunch. But when I first started doing the podcast, I felt a little, I felt like it lacked some inspiration, only because if the person that I was speaking said that they were born, it kind of puts the messaging out there that if you're not born with this, well, you're kind of shit out of luck and you're not going to be able to do it. However, as time has gone on, and I've met a bunch of people and been able to interview a bunch of people, what I've learned is everybody is born with something. Yep. Everyone is born with something. And the journey in life is trying to figure out what that is as fast as possible, so then you can ultimately triple down on it. There are people that have said to me like, no, I'm completely 100% made. Like, I sucked at this. And I think that that's hard. That is definitely an uphill battle. Yep. But it sounds like you were born with athleticism, and so you went for it.
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky to be born with athleticism, and I was also very lucky to really enjoy it. Like, I loved it. But I think it makes sense. Like, you like what you're good at. Now, I was also really lucky that I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and I come from a family of people who are like very supportive of me trying to, like, when I said I was going to go try and find an internship, they weren't like, no, you can't do that. They were like all for that. They loved that. And I didn't get the first one, and I was super upset about it. I didn't get that first internship. They said, no, we don't want a high school kid walking around. And I remember like walking in my house and my mom was like, did you get it? And I was like, no. And she was like, so what's next? And I was like, what do you mean what's next? She was like, are you going to apply to another one or are you just going to sulk around? And I was like, I didn't even think about that. So I applied to another one and then I got that job. That mindset, for example, of like, well, what's next? That is something that was taught to me. That's something where like that I learned that and I was able to practice that as opposed to being born with that. I think a lot of people, they have that first point of friction. They have that first obstacle and maybe they don't have the right person in their life to say, keep trying, go again. But if you do, then maybe you learn it at an early age. Oh, just because I failed here doesn't mean I have to stop here. Next, I go all in on sports. So I played soccer, I did wrestling, I did baseball. That's really where I spent all my time, was just sports. I was
Did you always excel? Were you always like a top fiver or were you like?
It depended on the sport. With wrestling and soccer, yes, I was very good at that. With wrestling though, is short guy, a little bit stocky, super quick, very, very coordinated, highly coordinated. So I excelled at that the most. And I loved wrestling because I'm a short guy. I go to school, kids make fun of you for being short, all this other stuff. But when they tried to pick on me and I slammed them down on the soccer field, like now people didn't pick on me anymore. And I was like, oh, this is my thing. It's like, this is the one area where I feel super confident, super proud of myself. It's the most rewarding and I'm the best at it. And it also gives me an opportunity to stand up for myself and stand up for my brother. Because as we got older, he didn't pursue athletics. He got picked on a lot. And the better I got in wrestling, the less people picked on him too, because they didn't want to have any issues, which was like, it felt really good for me. Like no one in my family was strong. No one was athletic. No one could stand up for themselves. So for me, it felt like a really good responsibility to have on my shoulders to look after my brother and look after my family. And that's sort of how I took that on. The more confident you get in your ability to defend yourself and your family, the more you can be yourself without fear and insecurity.
I so identify with that. When I first started to come out of this 10-year stint with addiction and drug and alcohol abuse, the first thing I did was I got thrown into a Muay Thai gym. And that was the first, and then I fell in love with that sport I trained Muay Thai for 10 years hard. But yeah, I mean, there's a level of confidence, discipline, self-respect, respect for others, humility that you get from the martial arts.
Yes, absolutely.
And any kind of combat. I mean, I think all fight sports are really a strategy game. And like Mike Tyson says, the tough guys never won. The smart guys always did.
Yeah.
Because you have to really get in there and it's a real strategy. It's not about how strong you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that component of your sort of journey helped you to really use your mind as well while you were actively moving your body?
Yeah, without question. Absolutely. I think especially jujitsu. So the way that, John Danaher.
Of course. I trained with him at Henze's.
That's where I trained.
Oh, sweet.
That's where I trained. So Danaher describes jujitsu as the sport of control leading to submission. And he describes wrestling as the sport of control. And I like that. It's like wrestling, you're not submitting anybody. There's no arm bars, there's no heel hooks, there's no leg locks, there's none of that. You're just trying to control your opponent enough where to ideally you get them both shoulders on the mat and you pin them. But if not, you're trying to control your opponent throughout the entire match. Jiu-jitsu is you have to control them enough to the point where then you can submit them, which takes another level, right? You go from playing checkers to chess. Bernardo Faria from BJJ Fanatics, he's incredible. Mm-hmm. He's a 5-time world champ in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Unbelievable. I was talking with him recently and he said something really interesting. He was like, man, I've always found that wrestlers, they do the best work later in life. They work the hardest. And it's interesting because a lot of the people that I work with were former wrestlers. And I don't know if this is, I have no science or research behind this, but there's something that you find in people across any industry, that there are some people that they just go. Sort of like you watch some fighters, they get hit in the face over and over and over again, and they just keep coming at you, like a Nate Diaz or someone. No matter how many times you hit him in the face, he's just going to keep on coming. You see people like that in life, where just whether it's coronavirus or whatever, all this stuff hits you in the face, but you keep going, you keep getting up every day, you never stop. I think sports like that help build that type of mentality where it's like, you're going to fail, you're going to get hurt, you're going to get kicked, you're going to get punched in the face. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I think that can play out in anything that you do in life.
So back to your story. So you're wrestling, and you're wrestling at a high level throughout high school. And then what?
So after high school, I took a year off and I moved to Israel. I didn't want to go to college yet. I'm also Jewish, and I had been to Israel once when I was 16, went on like a 10-day trip, fell in love with it. I was like, I want to go back. My family didn't have a lot of money, and there was this program that it was called a gap year program, where you could go and live in Israel and volunteer. And I wanted to do it, but we didn't have enough money. And my rabbi at the time, he was like, if you want to go to Israel, then we're going to find a way to fund it. And they funded my entire year in Israel.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. So then after that, I came back to the States. I went to the University of Delaware. I was told that if you want to be a strength coach, then you major in exercise science. Within a month and a half, I realized that was a huge mistake. I had learned way more in the 4 years of actually coaching people than what I was going to do in an exercise science degree, which is mostly based on research from mid 1900s that they hadn't really updated. The teachers had never actually coached anybody. So I switched from exercise science to behavioral health psychology. You will learn more in 3 months of interning at a gym than you learn in 4 years of exercise science. Just like, if you want to be a physical therapist, yes, go the exercise science route. If you want to be a strength coach, personal trainer, do not go the exercise science route, because everything you need to learn, number one, is online, but number two is get in-person experience coaching people from great coaches. That's where you'll learn the most information, and where you'll learn the best information. You'll get the most experience in the least amount of time.
You made a switch, and do you think that the path that you did take is something that those looking to follow that path should do?
Yes, because the best way to learn how to become a better coach is to coach people. One of the things that you're going to realize from coaching people is that you could have the best workout in the world, you could have the best nutrition plan in the world, but if the person doesn't follow it, it doesn't matter. So for me, it's like that was one of the greatest blessings of me starting coaching people at 14 years old, is I realized like I could understand program design and periodization and conjugate periodization and undulating and linear. And I can understand all this stuff. I could understand how to structure the best program, how to give the best meal plan. But if they aren't following it, it means literally nothing. And so I really realized early on that I had to understand why people are making the decisions they're making. Everybody knows that they should work out. Everybody knows they should be eating more fruits and vegetables and lean proteins. They all know this. Why aren't they doing this? In fact, you have people who are literally paying a significant amount of money to train with you every week, multiple times a week, but they're still not doing what they need to do. Why? So I was like, I want to go into behavioral health psychology so I can understand why people are making these decisions, so that I can actually help them make the changes they need to make.
Why are people making those decisions?
Now that's the $1 million question, isn't it? There's a lot. There are many reasons, but the main one that I come back to a lot is based around something called self-efficacy. Self-efficacy, it's like self-confidence, but it's a little bit different. The main thing being self-efficacy is your belief in your ability to accomplish a given task. Okay. So we take a lot of people who want to lose weight. A lot of people want to lose weight. Very few people actually believe that they're going to be able to do it. And this is a huge issue for people, because most people, maybe they've tried over and over and over again throughout their entire life, and they gain and lost and gain and lost and gain and lost, and they just don't think that it's going to be possible. Why would that person be willing to spend 6 months paying attention to their training and nutrition if they don't believe it's going to work at all, because they've been yo-yo dieting their whole life? Mm-hmm. But the way I frame it is this. Let's say you had $0 in your bank account, God forbid, $0 in your bank account. And I said, if you can find a way to raise $10,000 in the next 24 hours, and you spend those $10,000 on lottery tickets, you have a 99% chance of winning the Mega Millions. I guarantee you'd find a way to raise those $10,000, because the work would be worth it, because you know you're basically going to win millions of dollars, just like, and you can pay everyone off and it's not going to be an issue. On the other hand, if I told you, let's say you had $1 million in your bank account, and if I said, listen, spend $10,000 of those dollars on lottery tickets today, you have a 5% chance of winning the Mega Millions. Well, you know what? Probably not worth it. Even though the money's there, even though you have it, it's not worth the risk because you don't know if you're actually going to do it. This is what people struggle with health and fitness. It's like they don't actually believe in their ability, whether it's because they don't believe in the program, or more likely, they don't believe in their own ability to stick to a plan. They don't believe in their ability to do what they think is necessary. And this is where we have a lot of issues with misinformation. You get some people saying you got to go keto, you can't have any carbs. And if you think that that's right, if you think that you are not allowed to have any carbs ever, you get fat, then why would you believe in your ability to succeed, especially if you really love carbs and you don't want to give them up? So it's like, you know what, why bother? Why even bother trying if it means I have to give up everything I enjoy? So you have a lot of people not doing what it is they need to do because they think they can't actually do it.
It doesn't matter how great your programming is, how great your nutritional systems are. If people won't do it, it doesn't matter. And I gotta also say that I'm not in the fitness industry. However, I love it. I'm taking the precision nutrition level
Nice.
1 right now, which I'm really excited about. I just love the information, and potentially down the road, who knows? But the question I get asked most, because I take my fitness and nutrition very seriously, is how do you do it? I just fucking do it. It's truly, how do you get to your clients? How do you get to, because it's getting to their mental as opposed to giving them a physical plan or a nutritional plan. What is the trick that you use to get to their mental?
So this is a great question. This is what I've found a very common theme in that a lot of people start, and unfortunately the vast majority of the people who start also quit, right? This is the yo-yo cycle. They start and they quit, start, quit, start, quit. And I was like, all right, how do we get them not to quit? Right? That's really the answer. That's the question we have to answer. How do we get them not to quit? Because everybody starts at some point. The core of it, sort of going back to what I was talking about, people don't believe in themselves, is I had to eliminate that belief that that disbelief in themselves, or that belief that they can't actually succeed. So I made a video course for my clients back in 2012. And this is when I first realized this. And the first video in the course, going back to sort of making people smile, the response that I got to this every single time for thousands and thousands of clients was people just saying, like, when I watched this video, I couldn't help feel like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. And that's what I wanted. Basically, the first video in this course was titled, "You Can't Fuck This Up." And the whole purpose of that is because when people, they start a diet or they start a workout program, maybe they eat more calories than they should have one day or one weekend, or they go on vacation or they miss a workout or two, immediately, I fucked up. I fucked it up. And what do? Do they get back on track, or do they use that saying, I fucked up, as a justification to keep fucking up? Mm-hmm. That's what most people do. Most people, once they think they fucked up, they think they ruined everything. And they think, well, you know what? I fucked it up. And this is where I'll just get back on track on Monday, or I'll get back on track next week or next month. And oftentimes it keeps delaying. So from the very beginning, my first video in the course, before I gave them their nutrition guidelines, before I gave them their workout program, I was like, you need to understand this very clearly. You cannot fuck this up as long as you get back on track. The only way to fuck up is if you quit altogether. And this is a huge revelation for a lot of people, because most people, they have one donut and I fucked up. This is the whole reason why I did the Big Mac challenge. I was like, I eat one Big Mac every day for 30 days. It'd be very easy for me after I have one McDonald's meal to, I fucked it up. It's like, no, you get back on track. You're going to be totally fine. And when people really internalize this, now they don't have a reason to quit. And now being consistent becomes relatively easy. Most people think they need to be perfect. And as soon as they're not perfect, then they feel like they fucked up and they quit. But when you make consistency relatively easy, not perfection, just consistency, now success becomes inevitable.
Dude, I wanted to hear that so bad, because I fucking love it. I'm walking into a contest prep right now, and it's so interesting for me because I also live this life, and I have a lot of friends that I try to help along the way. and, you have you have a handful of Reese's Pieces at night with your lady, and before you know it, that handful becomes a pack, and you're like, oh, fuck. But I'm here to tell you, like, my personal experience, it's all good.
Yep.
It's all fucking good. Like, I know it's all good. I'm able to get to the shape, I'm able to get to the weight and body fat, my coach wants me at, even with all the fuck ups.
Yep.
2 days a week, 3 days a week, I could fuck up. And then I figure out how to kind of fuck up, but not really, And so I love that idea. I think really disarming the the future fuck ups or the future, derailments is a great way to get people to feel a level of confidence in anything. So you finished college, and then how do you get to where you're at now?
So in college, I started my business without knowing it was a business at first. So I started powerlifting at the end of high school once I stopped wrestling. And I was obsessed with West Side Barbell.
Oh, yeah.
So I was obsessed with West Side and Louis, and I hated college. I hated every minute of it. I had just spent a year in Israel volunteering with Holocaust survivors and living my own life. And I go back to school, and now I have homework assignments, and I'm surrounded by kids who just want to go to highlighter parties at frat parties and whatever. And I was just like, I'm done with this. So I started really hyper focusing on my strength training, my nutrition, my powerlifting. And I wrote Louis Simmons an email from West Side Barbell. And I was like, Louis, I used the same line that I used for my internship in high school. Let me come take the trash out. Let me clean the floors. I'll do anything. Just let me come and train with you. And Louis responded to that email, and he said, verbatim, I still have the email, our weakest guy squats 800 pounds. What do you have to offer? And I remember, number one, just shocked that Louis responded to my email, because he was like my idol. Like, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe Louis Simmons just responded to my email. I'm 21 years old in my college dorm room. And I was like, okay, I have two options here. Number one, I could be very polite and very courteous, and I could give him a reason why I should come, or I could just go at it really hard. And if you don't know anything about Louis, he's tatted head to toe. He deadlifts over 700 pounds, over 70 years old. Like, he's a badass motherfucker. So I went with the more gritty route, and I said, I don't give a fuck what you or anyone else in your gym does. I'll outwork every single one of you. And that's all I said.
You literally wrote that?
Yep. And then I got no response, and I was like, fucked up. And within the next week, I was walking out of the dining hall, and I got a missed call from Ohio. And I was like, oh, who's this? And I listened to my voicemail, still have the voicemail on my phone to this day. It was like, Jordan, this is Louis Simmons from West Side Barbell. I'd like to talk to you about coming to train here. And I was like, what the I freaked out. Number one, I checked my email. Apparently I had my cell phone number in the signature of my email at the time, which is how he got my number. So I got on the phone with him the next day. He invited me to come to West Side to try out to train at West Side. So my mom flew with me to West Side Barbell. It was like my tiny, like 5'2" Jewish mother came out with me. She was probably like the only like woman to ever like go there. And just for—
Did she go into the gym with you?
She went into the gym with me. Just for context, this is literally the strongest gym in the world. Like, they're the only way you get to West Side is if you're invited. They don't have a sign on the door. Their address isn't like public. Like, the only way you get there is if you're invited, and they'll tell you the address and you go there. It's in an industrial park in a garage. It's like the only way you go there is if you're invited. It's not like a key card gym where you swipe, you get your eucalyptus, whatever. It's like, no, it's like a very blood and shock style gym. We walk in the gym. The first thing we see is Louis walking towards us with blood pouring out of his nose all over his chest. He's shirtless. He had just been deadlifting over 600 pounds versus bands, or 600 pounds. And he's like, you must be Jordan. And I was like, yep. And my mom was almost in tears. Like, remember, their weakest guy squats 800 pounds at the time. Their weakest guy. So everyone is like almost 300 pounds or more. So we walk in there 5'4" and below, like tiny little people. And Louis is like, how's it going? And I was like, hey, I was in shock. I was looking at the board with all the records, and my mom was like, get me out of here. So she left. She went and sat in the car the rest of the workout. For that those 2 days, Louis was like, all right, so go, I want you to go do rack pulls. That was the first exercise he had me do. I was like, we're going to do rack pulls on like the 3-pin. I was like, how much weight should I use? How many sets and reps? He goes heavy as possible until it hurts too much. I was like, all right. And then I was like, what's next? He's like, front squats. I was like, how much weight? How many sets and reps? He was like, go as heavy as possible until it hurts too much. I was like, all right, what's next? Glute ham raises. Go as heavy as possible until it hurts too much. Every exercise for 2 days straight. It was the hardest training I've ever done in my life. And at the end of those 2 days, he shook my hand. He said, I'll see you over the summer. So I went back to school for the rest of the year, came back. I trained at Westside for 3 months, increased my total by 300 pounds.
Oh my God.
And yeah, it was insane. Absolutely insane. And then when I was at Westside, I remember my buddy and my mentor at the time, JC Dean, he was like, dude, are you training at Westside right now? Because I was posting some pictures on Facebook. And I was like, yeah. He's like, dude, you got to get a website. I was like, a website? I was like, I don't know how to get a website. He was like, hold on. An hour later, he emails me SyattFitness.com, the information for that. He was like, this is now yours. He transferred it all to me. And he was like, go write. I was like, what in the hell do you want me to, I was 21 years old. He was like, what do you want me to write? He's like, just help people. Write about what you're doing. Just help people. That was it. That's what I did from July 2011. Literally right now, 9 years ago, I was at Westside Barbell. From July 2011 until 2015, I wrote at least one article a week, every single week, just with the goal of helping people. But when I first started, I didn't know an online business. I didn't know it existed. I didn't know PayPal.com existed. I didn't know online coaching was possible. It wasn't really a thing then. Mm. So I left Westside after that summer, went back to school, and I just kept writing. And people would just reach out. Hey, could you do my programs? Could you and I was like, yeah, I would do it for free. Until one day, a woman from Brazil wrote to me and she was like, I love your stuff. Like, do you do online coaching? I was like, yeah. And she's like, well, how much do you charge? And I was like, I've never got that question before. And I was like, I don't know, $300. And she was like, cool. How do I pay you? And I was like, I need to figure this out. So I found PayPal and I got a PayPal account and she paid me $300. And I must have spent 6 hours on her program because I was so nervous. I was like, I can't believe this woman just paid me $300 to write her program. This is crazy. And she was a client for a while. She was great. And that was my first online coaching client that I got when I was in college. And that's what I did for the rest of college. I just made content online on YouTube, and on Instagram didn't exist yet, but on YouTube and on my website. And I just spent all of my free time writing and making content. And that was it, with the goal of helping people. And it was very powerlifting focused. And then when I graduated college, my mom was like, she didn't know what I was doing. She had no idea. When I graduated college, my mom was like, all right, you need to get a job. I was like, I think I'm good. And she was like, what do you mean you think you're good? And you have to remember, like, no one really thought a personal trainer was a job anyway in my family. And then I switched gyms, went to another gym and was doing my online coaching. And then after about 6 months at the new gym, I was like, I could just go fully online. So I went fully online and I moved back to Israel. I broke up with my girlfriend at the time, moved back to Israel. And I was just living in Israel, just doing online coaching, learning Hebrew. And then Gary Vaynerchuk's team reached out to me and they were like, Gary wants to see if you would coach him. I was like, first of all, I didn't think it was real. I thought it was a joke. I was like, there's no way this is going to happen. So when I found out it was real, I flew from Tel Aviv to New York, coached Gary, flew back to Tel Aviv, all within like a 36-hour window. My roommate in Israel didn't know I even left the country. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing because I didn't want to jinx it. So I flew from Tel Aviv to New York, coached Gary, flew back. And about a month and a half later, they reached out and they're like, all right, you got the job, move to New York. So I moved from Tel Aviv to New York about 4 years ago, started coaching Gary. I coached him 7 days a week for 3 years straight, literally every single day. Wherever he was, I was. If he was in Germany, I was in Germany. If he was in Hong Kong, I was in Hong Kong. If he was in LA, I was in LA. If he was in Chattanooga, I was in Chattanooga. Wherever he was, I was. 7 days a week, 3 years straight.
Wow.
And during that time, I kept posting on social media, building my business, all that stuff. And now it's been about a year since I coached him. Still really good terms. We still text pretty frequently. And now I'm just doing my online stuff in New York.
I mean, dude, the fact that your career really catapulted from you taking a bold response to an email to, I mean, that's incredible. I love that. I think that makes such that's such a powerful message where, you know, I mean, I'll bring it to the precision nutrition course that I'm in right now. You know, they say there's a difficult, easy, and a difficult, difficult. And the difficult is doing the shit that is hard, that you're terrified of doing, not the shit that's hard that you're comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And I am like, I didn't know that I was going to get so much out of this precision stuff, but truthfully, I mean, it sounds like you took a difficult response there, and you just said, fuck it, I'm going for it.
Yep.
That's amazing, dude. And Gary, I mean, you whipped that guy into shape. There's absolutely no doubt about it. He is, you know, and he talks about it pretty regularly, which is great. Fitness is my number one top priority before my family, before my business, before everything, because I know that it calms and cools my jets as a human being. And I know that when I get it in first thing in the morning, I'm just a better husband, father, business owner, partner, you know, like I'm just better at everything as just an emotional human. People that excel in it inspire me so much, specifically in the coaching element, because I think it's, you know, it's so important. Deadlifting. So deadlifting is something that you've been focusing on a lot in your content. And I mean, I only know because I've only been following along for the last few months, but you know, you have a really like great 60-day deadlifting program. Do you believe it is the end all be all movement for just fitness in general?
I would say, and I hate when people ask me this question. People say, like, if you could only do one exercise for the rest of your life, what would you do? And I hate that question, because if you're a good coach, then you know there's always more than one exercise you can do, regardless of what implement you have. But if I could only do one, it would be deadlifting. Deadlifting would be the one exercise I would do for the rest of my life. It works your entire body. It is like the most versatile for many, many reasons. You can change it based on your body proportions. You can change it based on your weaknesses, on your strengths. You can vary it based on what goal you want to accomplish, whether it's max strength or explosive strength or speed or endurance, grip strength, back strength, glute strength, hamstring strength, core strength, every strength that you ever want to work on, from athleticism to proper movement patterns. It's like the king lift, I very much believe. Not to mention, I just think it's really cool because if you really want to test it, if you ever want to know how strong you are, I think the ultimate test of strength is, well, how much weight can you pick up? Like, how much weight can you pick up off the floor? Just tell me, how much weight can you pick up off the floor? That's the deadlift. It's like, how much weight can you pick up? And you can vary the weight depending on what goal you want to accomplish, but it's the ultimate test is how much weight can you pick up? So I love that about it.
If you can give 3 cues for anybody in the deadlift game who's either plateauing or doesn't know their potential, what are those cues?
I have 3 words, 1 word for each cue. And this is my favorite cue that I give to all my clients. Breathe, click, pull. And I'll explain each one. Breathe, it makes sense. I'm going to breathe properly, but it goes into more depth than that. So most people, when they breathe, and an easy way for anyone listening, put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. And I tell you to take a deep breath in, watch which hand moves. Most people, their chest, they take a deep breath in, their chest raises first. That means you're breathing through your chest. You're breathing through your accessory breathing muscles, your scalene sternocleidomastoid. You're breathing through, like, it's a stress breath, not like a calm breath. What I want you to do is learn how to breathe through your belly first. So you take a deep breath in through your nose first, fill your belly up as much as you can. You fill your diaphragm. That's what protects your spine. So a lot of people, like, if you think about like a floaty in a pool wrapped around your arm, if you have a deflated floaty, it's not going to do very much. You want to fill that floaty up as much as you can to create a lot of pressure around your arm to help you float. That's what your diaphragm does with your spine, right? So you fill your diaphragm up as much as you can. And then after you fill your diaphragm up, then you fill your chest up. So diaphragm first, chest second. If you think about like an empty bottle of water, if you take that empty bottle of water and you try and twist it, it's very easy to deform and crunch, right? Mm-hmm. You take that bottle of water, you fill it halfway up. You can still deform it, but it's a little bit harder. You fill the bottle all the way up with water. Now, good luck twisting and crunching that thing. It's not going to deform at all. So that's number 1, breathe. So get your breath right. Breathe in through your diaphragm, then your chest. Now you're going to hold. Now breathe, click. Click is pulling the slack out of the bar. You hear a click when the barbell meets the weights. There's a little bit of a space before the barbell hits the weight. You hear, you pull the slack out, click. That means you pull the slack out. A lot of people, they'll jerk the bar. You see, and it tears my eyes out. It burns my eyes to watch someone just jerk the bar off the ground. So what you want to do is before you actually initiate the pull, you want to hear that click. So you start pulling, click. Now you can generate more force because now you're not going to jerk the bar. So breathe, click, last one's pull. And I should sort of switch this to say push now. And pull basically just means like start the lift. But I say push now because when you tell people to pull the bar off the floor, a lot of times they'll use their lower back. When you think about pulling, they pull with their lower back. When you say push, they think about pushing the floor away from them. This is one of my all-time favorite cues. Pulling the bar is more of an internal cue. You think about yourself pulling the bar up. When you think about pushing the floor away from you, this is an external cue. An external cue, just if you do a cursory search of the research around motor unit activation, motor unit recruitment, external cueing is significantly more effective at generating more maximal force production. So we'll call it breathe, click, push.
I think the cue that is probably going to help me the most, because I've heard so many cues over time, but the pushing the floor away from me is not something I do consciously. And what do you think about squeezing the barbell as hard as you can? I mean, is that
I hate that. I hate that because it takes the focus away from what you actually need to be focusing on. If you're trying to grip, you watch like rock climbers, right? Who are probably the ultimate of grip strength. They're not gripping the rocks as tight as they can. Like they've gotten very good at relaxing their muscles. They just grip as hard as they need to and no more. Right? It's like they're not gripping every single time as maximally as they can. It's enough. Now, this is an interesting point. When most people deadlift, they make the mistake of gripping the bar right here. It's a huge mistake. You want to grip the bar right here. You want to let the bar just sit right in the base of your at the base of your fingers. You just curl your hands around it. This is where you grip the bar. This is what happens is let's say imagine my hand is actually upside down right now. Okay. And I'm deadlifting like this. Okay. If you put the bar here, then what's going to happen? Gravity is going to pull it down. So have you ever been deadlifting and felt your skin pinch on your hands and it hurts like crazy because the bar is pinching the skin in between your hands? It's awful. What'll happen is if you start with here, gravity is going to take it and it's going to pull it down until it pinches on your fingers. Whereas I'd rather just start at the bottom and I'd rather just start right here. So now it has nowhere to go because it's going to pick up momentum. It's going to pick up momentum as it goes. And it's going to be harder to hold on to it. Start with it here. Let your fingers curl around it. That's really where you hold it anyway.
You just put a piece of content out there that I love to death about people breaking other people's chops for eating healthy and being like a healthier person. And that's like my life, and it's gotten a lot better over the last probably 3 or 4 years. I've been sort of on this path for the last 14 years. And when I first started, I was eating like chicken and broccoli and that was it, right? That's like all I knew. And everybody broke my chops and it made me feel so shitty, even to this day. So I know that there's a lot of people out there that get discouraged by family members, specifically girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, wives. Once they start to take the plunge into changing their lives for the better through nutrition specifically. Can you give a little advice on how to handle when somebody says, "Oh, come on, stop being a bitch"?
I think the first thing you have to understand is why they're doing it. Right? So why are they doing that? Most people, the vast majority of people, when they say like, come on, just have a slice of cake. Come on, stop being a Debbie Downer. They're doing it because they feel bad about themselves. They're doing it because if they have a slice of cake and you don't, now they feel like a fat ass and they feel bad about it. So it will make them feel better to see you have it because that can justify them doing it. So you have to know that's where they're coming from. They're not doing it because like they have your best interest at heart. They're doing it to try and make themselves feel better about themselves. That's number one. And number two is this is harder to do with family. I have a separate thing for family, but if it's just like a buddy or you're out with friends or whatever, for me, I've always found saying like, I'm just doing a challenge is a really good way to get people off your back. So if you just say, no, like this works with drinking really well with alcohol. Someone's like, come on, have a drink. Come on, stop being a puss, whatever it is. I did all 2019. I did a no alcohol challenge. And when I tell people I'm doing a challenge where I'm not drinking, all of a sudden it's just like, oh, cool. Tell me about the challenge. Maybe I should do that. It's like, it's very interesting. I don't know why that happens, but it works really well. When it's your family, that's a different conversation. And that's something I struggled with. I still struggle with my family. Like my mom, my whole family, they're not health conscious. They're not into nutrition. So every time I go back, my mom will always like cook all these things and like eat more, eat more. Oh, come on. You're hurting my feelings. That'll be the worst. Mom was like, you're hurting my feelings because you're not eating my food. I was like, Mom, I'll eat an appropriate portion of your food, but I'm not going to eat the entire icebox cake. It's a little bit ridiculous. And it's one of the things where you just have to you just have to get okay with setting boundaries and being okay. Like if someone's feelings are hurt because you're not eating their food, that's not your problem. Just straight up. Like if you go to your mom's house, your mother-in-law's house, your grandma's house, whatever, and they cook something for you, I would eat some of it. Like don't be an asshole and not eat any of it, but you don't have to eat all of it. You don't have to get seconds or thirds or fourths or fifths. And if you decide you don't want any, just be like, no, I'm good. Thank you. And if they're like, start busting your chops, just be like, I'm really good. And that's it. That has to be the end of it.
Lastly, I just want to talk about your happiness, because I think that you are, from what I can see, and after this conversation, you seem like a genuinely happy person. Can you give us a little bit of a light into what you do potentially on a regular, semi-regular basis that feeds your happiness fire?
Thank you. And I'll talk about that. I do want to preface by saying I, like everybody, struggle with everything, with anxiety, with feelings of insecurity, jealousy, everything. I'm a human. And the reason I start with that is because I see a lot of people on social media portraying themselves as like always happy, always in a good mood, always optimistic. It's like, that's just not real life. So I do think I'm very lucky. I do think I'm very blessed. And I do think I'm probably happier than many, many people for many reasons. But I also struggle just like everybody. I literally just had my first therapy appointment earlier today, where I just spoke with a guy about my anxiety. And I think that's important to talk about because I think mental health is super important and I have to be open and honest about it. I've found that I am my happiest when I am doing things to help other people. That's just what I found in my life. Now, one thing I've noticed recently, probably in the last year or so, is that when I've chased happiness, I've often come up short of happiness. Because usually by chasing happiness, oftentimes we'll do things that are done out of looking for an impulsive pleasure, right? So a lot of times people will like, okay, well, I'll have this food or I'll do this because it'll make me happy in the moment. But 5 minutes later, an hour later, they feel awful about it. They feel really bad that they did it. So I found that I get happier when I chase the things that fulfill me. Now, the fulfilling things are generally the harder things. You were talking about like you have the hard, easy things or the hard things. It's like the things that are the hard, like helping people, going out of my way, posting on social media, making content, answering emails, answering DMs, doing all this stuff. Like that's hard. I love it, but it's hard. I love it because of what happens as a result of it. I love it because people tell me, hey, like you changed my life. I love it because I see people who are improving their marriages, improving their relationship with themselves, improving their relationship with their kids. I love it because of that. Not because necessarily I love getting up early and making this content. Like I enjoy it, but I really like the result of it. So for me, I think I'm always happiest when I'm chasing the things that fulfill me and doing the things that I know on the other end of it, I'll feel really good about, as opposed to doing what's going to necessarily make me feel good right now. Because I think if you only try and do the things that make you feel good impulsively in this moment, you're probably going to go down a very dangerous path, a very slippery slope. Whereas if you do the harder things that you know will fulfill you, then you'll probably end up being more happy.
Jordan Syatt, do you believe you were born or made?
I'm going to say, I think I was bade. I was born. A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. I think you're probably right. I will say the fact that you're born kind of makes you born. And I think the message here is you found the talent that you were inherently somehow, even though it doesn't exist necessarily in your immediate family, given, and you really push play on it, and that's beautiful and inspirational. And I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to join me on the podcast, man. I will continue following your content because I think it's so much fun and so awesome. Where can people find you?
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. This has been a blast. People can find my own podcast, the Jordan Syatt mini podcast, or Instagram or YouTube. If you Google search my name, Jordan Syatt, you'll find me.
Awesome. You're amazing. Stay safe. And thank you again.
Likewise, man. Thank you.
All right, brother. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too, man.